In section 13, we're exploring the distributive property. Now, the distributive property is simply this. If we have a number that's outside parentheses and it indicates multiplication, we're going to take that number and distribute it, or multiply through, to each of the terms that's in there. So, for instance, on number 1, it says rewrite the following expressions by applying the distributive property and then combining like terms. And that's going to be one of the keys, is making sure we combine like terms correctly. So let's start with kind of a basic one here, number 1. We have 3 times the quantity 2y minus 5, which means we're going to take 3 and we're going to multiply it to each of those pieces. So when I take 3 times 2y, I get 6y, and 3 times negative 5 will give me negative 15. Where we're going to run into some issues with distributive property is with negative numbers. Let's take a look at number 5, because we have a negative out in front. This is where we have to be a little careful. So when we have a negative number out in front, we still are going to follow that process of taking that number, multiplying it through, and then combining terms where we need to. But it gets a little challenging when it doesn't look like there's a number in front of there. It's just a negative sign. Well, the reality is there's a negative 1 in front of there. So if I take negative 1 times y, that's negative y, and negative 1 times negative x is positive x. So our final solution then would be negative y plus x. There's no like terms to combine because there's no terms that have the same variables to the same exponent. Let's look at 8, where that might not be the case anymore. So I see one set of parentheses, a negative 4, and then a z plus 8 in parentheses. My first step is to take negative 4 and multiply it by z, and take negative 4 and multiply it by 8, be careful how I make my z's here, because z's and 2's look an awful lot alike. What we're going to do next is look for like terms. Like terms, again, same variable, same exponent. I have negative 4z and negative 3z together is negative 7z. And then if I look at my other part right here, a negative 32 and a positive 2, I can put those together to give me negative 30. So again, I distributed and then combined like terms because I actually did have some like terms to combine. Let's look at number 9, where we're going to have to distribute twice. Doesn't change what we're going to do, though. We're still going to take our numbers in front of the parentheses, distribute through. We just have to do it twice. So I take 11 times 2, I get 22x. And 11 times negative 1 is negative 11. And this is the tricky part right here with that negative 4. Negative 4 is being distributed, not 4, but negative 4. So I distribute the negative 4 to 7, gives me negative 28. And here's the most common mistake we're ever going to make. Negative 4 times negative 3 is a plus 12x. What happens a lot of times is we'll distribute that 4 and make it a negative 12x. It's not supposed to be, though, because we're actually distributing the negative 4. Combining like terms, I've got 22x and 12x, that's 34x. And I've got negative 11 and negative 28, which is negative 39. And then my like terms are combined. So in activity 2, we're going to be doing activity 3, we're going to be doing much of the same thing, except one little extra piece, a rewrite expression in the form ax plus b. Essentially what we're saying here is we want to rewrite this so that we have our x term first and then our number part after that. So let's just grab a couple of these problems and work through them real quick here. Number 2, the reason I'm picking this one is, well, a couple reasons. I've got 2 distributions I have to do, and they're both negative. So that's going to be probably, I think, the pinnacle of the difficulty of these questions. So if I take negative 2 times negative 3x, I'm going to get 6x. Negative 2 times 4 gives me negative 8. And if I take negative 5 and distribute, I get negative 10x minus 5. Again, we want it in the form ax plus b. So again, my x term has to be first. 6 and negative 10 will give me a negative 4x. Do this in a different color. And negative 8 minus 5 will give me negative 13. Again, it's in the form ax plus b because our x term is before our other term there. Let's find one where we have to do a little bit of rearranging. How about number 7? Number 7, again, we're going to distribute twice because I see 2 sets of parentheses and the numbers in front. 2 times 7 is going to give me 14. and 2 times negative x is negative 2x. Distribute the 4 in the second side, that's a plus 8 and a plus 4x. So I can combine my like terms. 14 and 8 is 22, and negative 2 and 4 is a plus 2x. We might be thinking we are done. Mathematically, we are correct. However, the directions say we want to write it in the form a times x plus b. So this term right here has to move to the front. 2x plus 22. Now, just as a side note, if we had something like, I don't know, let's say 10 minus 7x, then we wanted to rewrite that in the form ax plus b. What we're going to do with that, again, we're going to be a little bit careful with this. We're going to move it so that the x term is first, and then our number term after, our constant term is after that. So in order to do that, we have to really identify what is that negative associated with. Is it associated with the 10 or with the 7x? And the reality is it's associated with the 7x. We never write it as like 10 negative or 14 negative. It's always negative 14. So if you see a negative sign, it's in front of whatever the next term is. This 10 is actually a positive, so it's a plus 10. When we rewrite this in the form of ax plus b, we get negative 7x plus 10. Again, the negative sign is associated with that 7. It's not part of the 10, it's part of the 7x. So to remove the 7x, we have to move the negative with it as well. So again, that's the distributive property and combining like terms, which is what section 13 is all about.